Hello everybody, Dr. Ireifej here. So this video is going to focus on veterinary telemedicine. Now that I've been um, helping run VetTriage for almost a year, we've, of course, over time sort of evolved the definition of what veterinary telemedicine is. And it turns out that despite telemedicine being around for a very long time on the human side, it is completely full of ignorance on the veterinary side. And over the time of not only performing the research and preparation for VetTriage, but also in making this company a success that continues to improve, we have come up with several categories of how to define veterinary telemedicine and then how to define what VetTriage can do within that realm. So without going into too much legal mumbo jumbo, I'm going to sort of just talk about it quite broadly. So let's get into it. Veterinary telemedicine. As a broad category of what types of companies are out there are basically three different types. The first is a veterinary telemedicine company that sells software to a veterinary hospital so that they can perform their own telemedicine. Inherently, veterinarians don't really want to do telemedicine. We prefer to do the face-to-face in the exam room consultations, right? That's sort of the old school way of doing it. That's the way everybody did it till the pandemic, and probably that's how we're going to go back to doing it the second the pandemic is over. So veterinary telemedicine companies will sell their software so that you, the practitioner, can then perform telemedicine at your clinic. This is good because then you can keep up with the times of what people are doing with telemedicine nowadays. It is bad in that most veterinarians don't really want to perform telemedicine, and you are legally limited to a large extent to what you can and can't do with telemedicine. That's category one. Category two is the non-video telemedicine services. These are companies that will do the telemedicine for you and your clients. They involve email, texting, and phone calls. There's no video involved, and that is by far the most common type of veterinary telemedicine. It's been around for a very long time. In fact, you can almost consider chat rooms like in Facebook or other social media platforms that discuss animal welfare, discuss various conditions that occur with animals, and people are on there giving advice. Even that's a form of telemedicine. Non-video, but it's still a form of telemedicine. And so the benefit to that kind of telemedicine is that you don't need any kind of fancy software. You can develop any kind of company that has email, phone calls, or text services, most of which, by the way, are email and texting. Uncommon to have phone call. And then you can have easy correspondence with the pet owner. The downfall to it, of which there are many, in my opinion, are, of course, you can't see the pet. That's a problem. You also don't know who you're talking to behind the scenes. Is it really a veterinarian? If you look at those companies that advertise this type of service, they will use kind of broad terms or general terms like veterinary expert or animal expert or vet care professional or whatever it is. And so you don't really know who you're talking to. In fact, I would argue that in the majority of the time, you're not talking to a veterinarian. You're talking to somebody who's doing a literature, or rather a web engine, a Google search for the answers to what may be going on with your pet. So that's the second category, non-video correspondence, mostly with email or texting, sometimes phone calls, that'll help pet owners kind of figure out what to do with their pet. The third category, of course, is the standalone, gold standard video teleconferencing, and that's where VetTriage stands. We are the only veterinary-owned, 24/7, two-way, real-time video conferencing for veterinary telemedicine that aims to take care of your pet, to decide whether or not what you're seeing at home is a true veterinary emergency, or if this can wait for your veterinary office to open, and in the meantime, what can you do to help alleviate the problem? That's the third category, and that would consider the gold standard. You're always getting a veterinarian on. You can see them. They're going to know what they're talking about right there, then in the moment. It's video, so they can see what's going on with your pet, 24/7 and veterinary owned. The benefit to having veterinary owned is that the company can then be tailored to what veterinarians as team players are looking for in a career, and also what the pet owner and the pet needs. So those are the three categories of veterinary telemedicine as we see them. And as far as I can tell, nobody else has devised this type of category. Nobody really has figured this out before. It just took some time and some research, get my feet wet, and now there you go. There are the categories. The second thing I want to talk about in this video is how can a company like VetTriage that has these amazing capabilities help you out. 4 categories of how we can function. The first is direct to consumer. Direct to consumer is where you as a pet owner seeks out veterinary telemedicine company, you find VetTriage, you sign on, and you utilize the services. Direct to consumer. That's the individual pet owner who needs help. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're a rescue organization and you want to try and find a way to help your pets in your shelter or your rescue, whether it be pets that are waiting to get homes, whether it be pets that are in foster care, whether it be pets that are newly adopted, whatever it may be, if you're looking to try and save money, because that's the big deal with rescues, and you're not sure if the pet in those scenarios is having an emergency, VetTriage, triage the pet, and we have saved these organizations thousands of dollars by creating their own method to try and utilize our services to where they can use us 24/7 for those emergencies to see whether or not that pet can wait to the next day to get care with one of their veterinarians, or whether we have to go into an emergency hospital that night. That's the second category. The third category by which VetTriage can be used is for general practitioners. Those general practitioners that are looking to get off of on-call. They want to utilize an answering service, but they want one that's medically trained, after hours, weekends, holidays, and that does not bother the veterinarian unless they need to be bothered. So basically how would happen in that scenario is currently you either have a veterinarian or a veterinary technician who's on call after hours to take any and all phone calls that come in from clients that are either new clients or previous clients to see whether or not what they're dealing with at home is a veterinary emergency. If it's a veterinary emergency, they may either go to an emergency hospital or they will go to the veterinary hospital and they'll meet that general practitioner at the facility. The same person who took the phone call, you'd meet at the hospital. Or they use an answering service where it's kind of like a middleman. It's basically a phone operator who will take the call and see whether or not they can pass them to the veterinarian. The third option with that kind of scenario is, well, if you have a pet emergency, nobody's on call at the vet, you will call their phone number, get their voicemail, go on the website, and basically it'll say, go to our nearby emergency hospital, otherwise we're open in the morning, or we're open next week. So for veterinarians who want to utilize VetTriage as an after hours answering service, they will then triage all the calls to us, funnel all the calls to VetTriage, and we'll provide that communication. Video conferencing 24/7 with the pet owner and decide whether or not this is an emergency. If this is an emergency, we either get sent over to one of the nearby emergency clinics, or if the general practitioner wants to be contacted if there's an emergency to meet that pet owner at the facility, then we will call that general practitioner, give them the update on the pet, meet them in 20 minutes. Gone. That's the third way VetTriage can be utilized. And the fourth and final way, case allocation. So right now, there is an immense amount of wait time. There is somewhere between 2 and 8 hour wait times for emergency hospitals if you have a pet emergency that's not considered critical. So if you don't have a pet that is deathly ill from a condition, you are waiting between 2 and 8 hours for outpatient care. At any emergency hospital, this is happening all across the United States. There are some that are towards the 2 hours, there are some that are towards the 8 hours. On top of that, there are even facilities whose ICUs are actually turning pets away. They're at capacity because they can't fit anymore. So what VetTriage does in these scenarios is, from either the comfort of your own home, or as you're driving to the veterinary emergency hospital, or while you're in the parking lot waiting for curbside assistance, or waiting for you to be treated in the 2 to 8 hour wait, you contact VetTriage and we tell you whether or not it's worth your time to stay there. Some cases it is. You wait. Some cases it's not. Go home. Here's what you do in the meantime. Wait for your veterinarian to open up in the morning or next week. About 50% of cases will have an actual emergency. The other 50% can go home and wait for their veterinarian. Roughly speaking, it's probably more like 60% emergencies, 40% go home. The idea behind this is not to take business away from the emergency hospital, and it's not to try and save clients money when it's unnecessary or unethical. We're trying to reallocate where the cases go. We want to minimize the wait time for emergency hospitals. We want to save money for the clients and have that money be spent at the family veterinarian when they're open again. But we want to make sure that the pet is taken care of first and foremost. So case reallocation. So if you get to an emergency hospital, it's an 8-hour wait time, a 6-hour wait time, you're not sure if you need to be there. VetTriage will help figure out whether or not you can go home. If it's safe for your pet to go home, they'll give you some advice. Wait for your veterinarian to open. If it's worth waiting, you need to wait. There are some cases that even though they are not critical, they are important to be seen that night as an outpatient. It's worth the wait. And there are others, of course, that are more obviously critical. You have to go there. And that's case reallocation. That's the fourth. So just to reiterate, let's wrap this all up. 3 types of veterinary telemedicine: companies that sell software for veterinary hospitals to perform their own telemedicine, veterinary telemedicine that has email, texting, or phone calls, or video conferencing telemedicine. Then there's 4 uses for VetTriage with our state-of-the-art software and our one-of-a-kind service. We can use this for your individual pet owner who's concerned and doesn't know what to do, rescue organizations or shelters, veterinary hospitals that don't want to be on call and want to use us as an answering service, and then finally the emergency and specialty hospitals that have long wait times where you want to make sure that you minimize veterinary staff stress, maximize the pet owners that need to be there. You handle the big cases, and we'll reallocate the cases that are not so major to the family veterinarian. I hope this helped enlighten you on what veterinary telemedicine is, how I see it now that I've been doing this for almost a year. Veterinary telemedicine is still an evolving field, to say the least, and we are going to make big changes in this veterinary field. Get ready for it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.